Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Perth East Council this fourth day of February. I'd like to call the meeting to order. If everyone could please bow their head for a moment of reflection. Thank you. We need a motion to confirm the agenda as received. So we have a motion that the agenda as prepared for February 4, 2025, meeting of the Council of the Township of Perth East be approved as received. Moved by Bob, second by Hugh. All in favor? Carried. Okay, if you have pecuniary interest, you can disclose that now or as the meeting goes along. Excuse me, under our consent agenda, we have 19 items. Is there any item anyone would like pulled or they have questions on? Andrew?
Thank you, Mary. I'm just wondering, just a quick question. Perth County update, item 5.1.9. How the four-way stops? I know obviously you're not going to do them in the winter. I'm getting questions. They thought they were going to be done on 33 and 29 on the county road. Is there a plan for that, a timeline? I guess the concern is it's going to be during planting and mess up traffic. I just wonder if there's any information we can share about the installation of the four-way stops.
Of how it happens? There's criteria. When? There is criteria that the county follows. Jake maybe can elaborate a bit more on it, that they follow, and they go by this criteria as to when and if a four-way stop should go in. So Jake, maybe you could help me out a bit.
Yeah, I think you're more so asking when the intersection, the four-way is going to be converted, right? I don't have a timeline from the county, but I can certainly reach out to them and get a date. If there is one at this point, is that the...
You know, I'm just getting inquiries about, it was released, I think there's a press release on this last fall.
Yeah.
And it seemed imminent, so just want to be able to answer questions.
Right. Well, I can certainly find that out from the county folks and loop council in on that.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Jerry?
I'm wondering if we, so I guess we should pull 5.1, sorry, 0.9, sorry, 5.110, that one.
Okay, we'll pull that one out. Anyone else? If not, then we have a motion that items 5.1.1 to 5.1.19 as set out on the consent agenda for the regular meeting of council be received for information with the exception of 5.1.10, which shall be introduced separately, and the minutes of January 14, 2025 regular council meeting be adopted. Moved by Jerry, second by Hugh. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, Jerry, do you want to elaborate a little bit more on that?
Sure. This was brought to our attention at the county council, and as you can see, the letter from our warden and also from the Perth County Federation, whether if there's consensus around the table to take this back to staff to see if it's worth developing a bylaw in regards to the kite fighting that has been happening, I guess, in some of the urban areas, and it's now possibly expanding to the rural area where some of the farmers end up with some of the debris that ends up on their farms. I'm not sure if you can send this back to staff for a look.
Okay. So you're moving that. Do we have a seconder? Amanda? Any more questions, Hugh?
Just to Jerry's comment, I would suggest they talk to Wilmot, or not Wilmot, maybe Wellesley Township. One of them that was a really big concern, and so they might already have a good bylaw there that we could adopt.
Okay. Anyone else? If not, all in favor? Carried. Okay. Now we move to presentations. We have no public presentations, no other presentations, no delegations. Public meetings and hearings. We do not have a public meeting or a public hearing. Now we're down to reports. There's nothing from planning, nothing from the CAO. The first one from the clerk's department is a request to produce a report under section 76 of the South Maitland River Drain, and Ashley's going to do that. So Ashley, the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks, Mayor Agates. So this is a request that we received from the municipality of North Perth. We have assessment in the watershed area for the South Maitland River drain. They received a request for section 78, so repair and improvement to that drain, and the superintendent there felt that the assessment schedule should be updated as well. So since the municipality is the one requesting the section 76 report, they need support from the member municipalities that also have properties within that watershed area. So West Perth and Huron East, us and North Perth, the other townships have sent their letters of support, so they're just looking to see if we also support that.
Okay, questions of the report? Seeing no questions, we have a motion that the Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report prepared by the Manager of Legislative Services / Municipal Clerk dated February 4, 2025, entitled Request to Procure a Report under Section 76 of the Drainage Act, South Maitland River Drain, North Perth, CLE-2025-04 for information, and further that Council direct the Manager of Legislative Services / Municipal Clerk to forward correspondence to the Ontario Ministry of Food, Agriculture and Rural Affairs, OMAFRA, in support of the request to proceed with Section 76 of the Drainage Act, South Maitland River Municipal Drain from the municipality of North Perth. Need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Amanda, second by Hugh. All in favor? Carried. Okay, and the second report we have is the proposed Municipal Accountability Act, and Sarah's going to do that for us tonight. Sarah, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Agates. So this report is being presented at the last council meeting. It was requested by council. Recommend that comments in support of the proposed legislation be sent back to the province. However, with calling of election, it doesn't make sense at this point. This bill is now dead in the water. However, it's worth noting that this is the fourth one of its kind, so it's probably going to be coming forward again in the future, something similar. So you might want to just make a mental note of the information in the report for next time. Any questions?
Okay, thank you. Any questions of the report? Seeing none, we have a motion that Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report entitled Proposed Municipal Accountability Act 2024, Bill 241, CLE-2025, dated February 4, 2025, prepared by the Deputy Clerk and Manager of Legislative Services / Municipal Clerk for information. Mover and a seconder, moved by Andrew, second by Hugh. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Sarah. Okay, we're going to move to finance, and the first one is the Ontario Regulation Budget Matters. Paula, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Agates. Before council tonight is the report on Ontario Regulation 284 Budget Matters, which requires us to report on 3 items: the amortization expenses that are excluded from the 2025 budget, as well as any post-employment benefit expenses and solid waste landfill closure and post-closure expenses. So the first item, the amortization expenses. So excluded from the 2025 budget is $2,896,362 worth of amortization. However, on the flip side of that, capital asset replacements are included in the budget in the amount of $8,342,292. So with these inclusion of the amortization and the removal of the capital asset replacements, the accumulated surplus would increase based on these adjustments. The second item, the post-employment benefit expenses, the township currently doesn't offer post-employment benefits, so there's nothing to report there. And the third item, the solid waste landfill closure and post-closure expenses. The reserve in the amount of $429,204 has been designated for the landfill site rehabilitation and post-closure expenses, and any future liabilities are anticipated to be funded through allocations to the landfill reserve within the budgets. That concludes this report. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you. Questions of the report? Hugh?
So then the 8,342, 292, that's our asset, the money we're putting away for asset management, right?
Yes, and capital projects.
And capital projects. Yep, okay, oh, thank you.
Anyone else, questions? If not, we have a motion that Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report entitled Ontario Regulation 284/09, Budget Matters, 2025 Expenses, FIN-2025-03, prepared by the Manager of Financial Services, Treasurer, dated February 4, 2025, for information. Moved by Amanda, second by Jerry. All in favor? Carried. And the second report is the 2024 Tax Arrears Report. Paula?
Thank you. So the 2024 tax arrears are in the amount of $934,356 on $22 million worth of taxation. This equates to a 4.25% of arrears on 306 properties. And the generally accepted guidelines for the tax arrears should not be greater than 10% of your current tax collector's roll. So we're well below that at 4.25. If there's any questions on the report, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, questions of the report? Andrew?
Thank you, Mayor Gates. What happens if we go over 10%?
We need to step up our collection procedures and stuff. We'd have to review that, and
I was gonna hope you're gonna find ways we could, say, cutting taxes, but maybe another time. Thank you.
yeah.
Okay, we have a motion that Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report titled 2024 Tax Arrears Report, FIN-2025-04, prepared by the Manager of Financial Services, Treasurer, dated February 4, 2025, for information. Moved by Bob, second by Hugh. All in favor? Carried. Okay, thank you, Paula. Now we're going to Public Works, and the item we have is the tender results for the Shakespeare Water System arsenic treatment. So Jake, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Mayor Eggets. The report tonight covers tender results for the construction of a new water treatment facility in Shakespeare with the ability to treat arsenic as mandated by the province. In the report itself, I provided a bit of a synopsis of the process beginning back in 2019 and how we got to where we are today. It's obviously been a long process assessing various options through the EA process itself, completing the design and getting ministry approvals. In coordination with BM Ross, the contract was issued for tender back on the 12th of November and closed December 17th. Unfortunately, the bids we received were much higher than what we anticipated, and were originally estimated, putting us in a bit of a challenging position. Based on the feedback from BM Ross, a lot of this cost can be attributed to COVID and the increased costs we saw after. The estimate itself was, for the most part, put together based on projects prior to COVID. So anyways, after receiving the bids, staff and BM Ross reached out to the low bidder, being Xterra, to see if the scope of the project could be reduced in any way to try and reduce the overall cost. Xterra generously extended the validity of their bid to February 14th to allow for them and BM Ross to meet and explore potential reductions in the contract. After meeting a contract reduction of $152,000 was possible through a combination of deferrals and also having township forces complete some of the works. Following a review with PM Ross, it was determined that the cost savings were not substantial enough, given much of the deferrals would end up in increased costs later, and not taking into account as well the cost for our township forces to carry out some of that work. So as such, it was recommended that the township, or it is recommended that the township look to award the submission originally provided by Xterra at a cost of $3,612,000 exclusive of HST, being the low bid by a difference of greater than $470,000, and the fact that BM Ross has worked with Xterra in the past on significant projects. It would be the recommendation of staff to award the tender to Xterra to try and initiate the project as soon as possible. Due to the significant increase in costs, it is staff's recommendation that the township will need to loan money in order to fund this project. With the help of the treasurer, Paula, thanks for your help, Paula. A breakdown of projected costs have been appended to the report for council's consideration. That's attachment 4. Costs are broken down between the treatment portion, growth portion, and fire portion, taking into account the grant funding and previously approved reserve transfers. There was a remaining shortfall of just under 2.2 million. As such, staff have explored potential loans. From staff's review of current interest rates, Infrastructure Ontario offers the best rate at the moment. The loan value recommended by staff would be 1.5 million over a 15-year term, taking into account several factors. Attachment 4, again, it actually includes essentially that the township would take that loan and have the associated interest put into the fee schedule. As presented, there are a few factors that council should be aware of. Of primary importance is the assumption that council will maintain the approach of mandating existing connections and non-connected households to pay the associated fees, either as a lump sum at the completion of the project or 6 installments within the first year. This was discussed back in October of 2023. This approach provides certainty that those funds will be collected within 1 year of project completion. The dollar value associated with this as presented is in the amount of just under $665,000. And should staff have the certainty of collecting these funds within a year, we would be comfortable temporarily borrowing those funds from the corporate reserve. Another important consideration in the projection assumes that all of the interest incurred over the loan would be placed on the growth component of the project. So as future connections occur, costs would be recovered through collection of those fees. I just want to make it clear to council that we're not passing a bylaw of the fee schedule tonight. It's staff's intention to come back with a report and associated bylaw in the near future. The primary decision for council tonight is whether or not to award the tender. But before finishing my presentation, I just wanted to highlight a few implications as it relates to making a decision tonight. So a couple things to consider. The bid by Xterra will expire on February 14th. Xterra is under no obligation to extend the validity of their bid. Given the ever-changing market conditions, it could lead to further price increases and potentially retendering. Another consideration, the township has received regulatory relief from the ministry up until June 30th, 2025. with the expectation from them that a tender would be awarded, really before considering a further extension. The ministry does have the ability to impose fines, certainly not saying that would happen for sure, but it is on the table if the relief expires and we haven't dealt with the arsenic situation. And then lastly, the ISIP grant, just over $1 million, requires the project be completed by October of 2026 or end of October. So that's another time constraint we're kind of dealing with here. But at this point, I would welcome any questions from council. We have Steve Burns with council's permission. I wonder if you could maybe sit up at the desk to answer any questions as well. Now, just for clarification, the financial side, any questions you can direct to Paula and I. Steve wasn't involved in that, so he's more for the technical. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So with council's permission, Mr. Burns, do you want to say anything before we start here?
No, I think Jake's report is very good, covers all the key points, but I'm glad to answer any questions.
Okay, so Amanda, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just have a few questions. I just want to make sure I'm interpreting it right. So captured in the contract value is the 150,000 contingency funding. So like hypothetically, that could be reduced.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. And then my other question is something that might be hard to answer. So if you don't have an answer, that's okay. So I know that we reference just the sticker shock of the tender results, referencing like COVID factors. Is the factors more related to like labor, or is it materials, or a combination of? Just because like it feels like COVID's been gone for a while, and it just seems like it keeps being brought up as like whether it's this or whether it's tendering trucks or whether it's tendering like anything, it seems to be like a reoccurring factor. So I don't know if we have like any insight into that. And then my last question, just so that all my questions are out there, and again, we might not have the answers, but like when we talk about like future growth and hooking up to the system, what would be the cost like tomorrow if somebody were to hook up to the system? I don't know if we have any insight on those items.
Yeah, no, thanks for the questions. The first one, I might let Steve speak a little bit to that, but my impression is it's more around materials than labor. I imagine there's a little bit of both. Electrical, I think, made up a significant portion of the increase.
Okay.
But perhaps, Steve, you've got more to add to that.
I think I can. It's not, as Jake indicated, it's not COVID itself that causes higher prices, but the way engineering estimates are done for this type of work is we go back and look at what previous similar projects cost to do. And when we were planning this project, all our examples were really from pre-COVID in time. Now, we saw as we went through the period of COVID, the cost of everything increased. Construction costs increased at a rate much greater than inflation. I sense it's related to the chain of supply and those kinds of things. But in this particular project, where we're seeing the greatest increase in costs is in equipment costs. Much of the larger equipment cost twice as much as we had anticipated in 2022 that it would. And then electrical costs. Part of it is, we know for electrical systems, there are essentially 2 manufacturers in Ontario, suppliers in Ontario, and they can pick and choose what they want and charge what they want. We've seen that, but it's so that's it's a case of we were pricing it in error on history that was pre-COVID, not adjusting for really what the current market is. And I had, when I prepared the original estimate, I had thought of what it would cost, and I added 15%. In hindsight, I should have added 35 or 40%. But in 2 years ago, I didn't know that. So.
Thanks, Steve. Amanda, I'll just follow up on your other question there. The cost for, as proposed, as we have it laid out with the funding scenario through Infrastructure Ontario, it's behind you there, but my eyes aren't very good. The projected cost would be about, yes, $7,710 for the growth connections, which would include anybody that are, yes, that's right, yep. And the other costs for the existing connections and non-connected households, those could be subject to change, even the 150,000 contingency you mentioned. That would be why those fees would get kind of confirmed at the project completion. But we would ideally, staff would like to establish a fee sooner than later for the growth piece as connections come aboard here in the near future.
Sorry, that's helpful. Just another question: has there been any like analysis done in terms of like when we're talking to residents that are concerned, perhaps like is there a neighboring municipality that has a similar costing? Like, is that like, do we have any sense of that? Just because I think like for us counselors that are on the front lines, getting the calls and things like that, we have to be able to justify things. And I just want to make sure I'm understanding, just understanding the comparison of things. Like if we don't have something like that, I think it would be helpful to equip us with that kind of information. I don't get calls on this, but I'm sure others do. And so I just, out of curiosity, I thought that might be something we could perhaps look into.
Yeah, certainly that's something we could have a conversation with BM Ross on. It is going to be challenging to get a like-for-like comparison, but we could look at something that's relatively similar and see what the fees would look like for those users versus what we're proposing, and bring that back to council.
I just have one final question and then I'm done, sorry. With the contingency costing, is there a way for us to, at the whatever 6-month mark, that we do get a sense of where we're at? Like, is there instead of just waiting till the end of the contract, like, is there a way for us to draft the contract that we get like a report in so that we know how it's going, or is that maybe not how things typically work at the municipal level?
I think that might be challenging until you know the exact dollar value, and it could be an issue that arises right at the very end of the project that could have implications on cost. So in terms of a bylaw, we could give council a preliminary look at what the numbers might look like nearing completion, but then we would really want to cement those after completion, I would say, for the bylaw purposes for fee collection.
Through the mayor, I just want to clarify, I mean, I maybe heard the question slightly different in that you were maybe looking for council to get updates during the course of the report about how much of the contingency had been utilized?
Correct.
Okay, yeah, and I think Steve can probably comment on that. Yeah, I do think it's doable, but I'll let Steve maybe speak to that.
That's correct. The contractor would be paid monthly. So every month there would be an accounting, and it would identify any use of the contingency. So I don't know if, how much of that comes to council, but it's certainly available.
So it would be like a line item in what, like, so they would invoice us and it would be in line item. So we would have a sense of things.
As an example, I know during the major renovations at the county, that was one of the things that county staff were reporting on, was utilization of the contingency. So it is something that we can, assuming we move forward, it is something that we can, put on our radar, that we provide an update to council around the utilization of the contingency.
Sorry, I lied. I have one more question. How do we, because I think we were talking about when the bids, when we were putting together numbers, we were tacking another 15%. When we figure out a contingency number, how does that happen? What's the like calculation around that?
Maybe I'll let Steve jump on as well. It does sometimes depend on the nature of the project, and depending upon how much the mix of between the project itself, whether it's heavy on labor utilization or it's on materials, it does tend to vary a little bit, but I do think there is a standard that the engineering firms look at, so I'll maybe let Steve touch on that.
Sure. As Mike explained, it depends on the nature of the project a bit, but we would typically, in this type of project, have a contingency of 3 to 5% of the overall project.
Okay, just in regards to, you asked about comparisons, the one that I think of first is Atwood. A few years ago, Atwood, and I believe all the residents were required to go to the septic, or their, what am I trying to say? Go to the system that they use. Like they all had to hook up. I don't think they had a choice. I think they all hooked up, and that sewage is pumped to the Stoa, I believe. So it would be one place that they could use as a comparator. It doesn't exactly compare because we've allowed the well owners to stay using their wells and not, at this time, not making them hook up. So, other questions? Hugh?
Yeah, thank you. Would there be a specific reason that you figured on 15 years?
Through you, Mayor, we looked at various options. We looked at 5, 10, 15, 20, and based on cash flow predictions and the future projects coming up in the next 15 years, I feel that we can handle the 15 years and not go to the 20 years and save some money on interest. I think the 10 years would be tight, would be very tight for us. Could be doable, but it would be tight.
And the numbers that they're, I think it's like for the future, they're looking about 267. So they're hoping that in 15 years, 267 roughly people are gonna hook up. And what would happen if we didn't get that number at the end of 15 years?
Through the mayor, ideally, 266, 67 would connect by the end of 15 years, and we'd have the loan fully funded. Otherwise, it's a risk that we have, those growth coming on and recovering that loan cost.
Okay, and just another question. The first summary we got in October of 23, the engineering costs and applicable taxes were not included at the time. Was there a reason for that?
I believe they were. I'm not sure, sir, what you're referring to specifically, but in the estimates that we provided, total project cost included engineering.
Well, because there's a statement in here. It should be highlighted that the figure provided did not include engineering costs or applicable taxes at that time. So I just wondered why it didn't be included.
That was my understanding of that provided quote at the time. The applicable taxes we incorporate into the updated estimate is the non-refundable HST. That definitely wasn't included in the initial 2.7. I can't remember exactly what the number is, but yeah, it was my impression that it wasn't, but that may have been an oversight.
No, just, it was there, so I just wanted clarity.
Okay, other questions? Andrew?
Thank you, Mayor Getz. So looking at the, I guess the final result here on P150, the projected fees, just so I'm clear, it's gone up from 1,100 to 3,100 for existing. The growth has been penciled out, and then the non-connected household holders, which we might as well call well owners, is their fee is doubled for the fire portion only to 500, and that totals that $664,000. So am I reading that correctly? That's how the columns work. Existing connections are the current people on water. Growth in future is like a subdivision or proposed subdivision eventually. I know we have a couple of areas that are in the settlement boundary, and then the non-connected are the well owners. So there's a couple of really good questions, and I'm thinking that, so this won't get you water or this is just a portion. So that, say for example, a subdivision comes in at 77, I'm just asking the question, I want to clarify. At 7,700, that will be just to pay for this project. That won't be putting pipes in the ground in the streets. That will just be for that. So this amount seems right because that's how much the sewers were about. I think it was a little back 20 years ago for about the same price. So it's actually not too bad. But so just so everybody's clear that this isn't to put water in Shakespeare. This is just to pay for the arsenic treatment plant with extra fire and capacity, right? So just so everybody knows that 7,700 is a drop in the bucket, most likely. Would you say the costs are pretty high? That would be a good comparator to probably start looking at what a municipal system. Hopefully it's not like Brant County or something where they had to run water for 16 kilometers because the aquifer was dry. But am I reading that correctly? And is that statement I just said true, that this is just the arsenic treatment plant on the highway?
That's correct. Doesn't involve any of the actual underground work that would be required to potentially service a new subdivision or development of any kind.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? If not, then we do have a motion. That the Council of the Township of Perkins received a report entitled Pending Results, Shakespeare Water System Arsenic Treatment, PUD-2025-03, dated February 4, 2025, presented by Management of Public Works Financial Services Treasurer for information, and further that Council award the tender to X-Terra Construction Inc. for the tender cost of $3,612,000 exclusive of HST, and further that Council approve a capital budget amendment of $1,220,000 for the Shakespeare Water Treatment Project, and further that Council direct staff to prepare a follow-up report with the necessary associated bylaws required to implement the collection of fees for council approval. You get a mover and a seconder, moved by Amanda, second by Jerry. All those in favor? Carried.
I'd like to request a recorded vote, please.
Okay.
Okay, Councillor Smith,
Yay.
Councillor McMillan,
Yay.
Councillor Broadhagen,
Yay.
Councillor McAlpine,
Nay.
Deputy Mayor McDermott,
Nay.
and Mayor Eggetts.
Yay.
Okay, and Councillor Matheson is absent. He didn't join, right? So that is carried 4-2.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Burns, for attending. We appreciate you coming. Thank you. Thanks, Jake. Okay, we're going to move on. We have nothing from building. From Parks and Recreation, we have the 2025 Ontario Trillium Foundation Capital Grant. Becky, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Mayor Rada. Before you report, basically requesting permission for council or for staff to proceed with a grant application for the Ontario Trillium Foundation. Same application was approved last year to apply to Trillium for the construction of washrooms and redevelopment of the pavilion at the Greenwood Park. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you. Questions of the report? Hugh?
Will we have to get all the grants before we proceed?
I'm sorry?
Will we have to get all the grants before we proceed?
It will depend on what we get from, if we were successful with Trillium. If we were to get to $200,000, we should be able to, we'd be close to proceeding. If we would only get $100,000 or $50,000, then yes, we would have to rely on other sources to complete or start the project.
Okay, Jerry?
Trying to find it through you, Mayor. How much is this eligible? Is it 50%? Is it in there somewhere? Or up to 200?
It's up to 200 from 10,000
To 200, okay.
to 200,000.
Doesn't say nothing about the value of the project, so let's hope we get 200,000.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? If not, we have a motion that Council of the Township of Perth East receive the report entitled 2025 Ontario Trillium Foundation Capital Grants, PRCS 2025-03, dated February 6, 2025, prepared by the Manager of Parks, Recreation, and Community Services for information, and that Council direct staff to apply to the Ontario Trillium Foundation Capital Grant for the Greenwood Park Washroom and Pavilion Project. We need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Amanda, second by Andrew. All in favor? Carried. Okay, thanks, Becky. We have no reports from fire. Under correspondence, we have a letter from the Honorable Lisa Thompson regarding plan to support rural economic development, increase and nurture a rural workforce, and strengthen rural communities. What would council like to do?
I'd like to make a motion to receive for information.
Okay, I'll read it, and then, so the Council of the Township of Perth East received the correspondence from Honorable Minister Lisa Thompson regarding Ontario's rural economic development strategy for information, moved by Amanda, second by Bob. All those in favor? Carried. Our next item is the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority draft work plan and budget. Is there anything anyone is concerned about on that? If not, we have a motion that Council of the Township of Perth East receive the 2025 draft work plan and budget from Maitland Valley Conservation Authority for information. Moved by Hugh, second by Jerry. All in favor? Carried. The third item of correspondence is from St. Peter's Lutheran Church in regards to their inactive cemetery, and they'd like us to take it over. Jerry?
We should refer this to staff for a report.
Okay. Do you want to second that?
I'll second that, but just to answer your question too, can we not do that? No, I have nothing against the church or taking over the cemetery, but it's the law now that you have to take it over.
Generally, yes, you have to, but we have had one inquiry. It was a different church, different cemetery, where the church group actually didn't allow it to proceed further to the township taking it over because they had enough funds on their own. So the bereavement authority and the church took it over on their own. I'm not sure exactly the logistics of this particular church yet. We would have to find that out in a follow-up staff report, but typically they take it, we do take it over.
If that's the law now, but if someone abandons a cemetery, you automatically get it. It's not whether you want to or not, it becomes yours.
Just to add to the clerk's comments, I know this is not a unique circumstance for our municipality. It's happening in a lot of other places, and it has been discussed about with the bereavement authority and through associations that this needs to be considered, that, yeah, we're not bottomless pits of money, and we don't, it's not just because the church, and again, I'm not trying to pick on any church or any of those, there are circumstances where it makes sense, but that it is being looked at more broadly in terms of what this transition looks like. It shouldn't just be a automatic turn it over to a municipality. So I think that's something that we as an organization will keep an eye on, and as if the direction is to receive a staff report, we'll try and get some of that information for council as well.
Bob?
Maybe in the follow-up report, you could explain how a property has no perpetual care and maintenance fund. I thought it was a requirement. And if someone doesn't, then doesn't the province have an obligation to contribute what that perpetual care should be? Anyway, just a follow-up.
Yeah, good point. Okay, so, did I read it? Yeah. So we move by Jerry and second by Hugh, that we have staff come back with a report. All those in favor? Carried. I don't think I read it, but it's good. Okay, we don't have my meeting log. It's going to come the next month. Council reports. Does anyone have a report for any of the boards or committees that they sit on? Jerry?
A couple or three little comments. So the first one, the library board. We did receive their minutes, so we have elected a new old chair. So the current chair, Laura Hallahan, was reelected, as was our vice chair, Mark Steffen, for the next couple of years. We have our first Perth East Twinning Initiative Committee meeting tomorrow. And then Roma, I attended Roma on behalf of the township. Middle of January, attended a few sessions of provincial offenses, rural responses to mental health and addictions. There was a homelessness talk. There was some relationships between First Nations and municipalities. I also sat in on a couple of delegations with the county, one with municipal affairs. We talked to discuss some shared services with the county. We also delegated with the Minister of Transportation. So we discussed the funding, some funding opportunities for PC Connect. I know the county, we've voted to cease that in March, but we found out that we may be eligible for some transit funding through that investment fund that we first thought we weren't eligible. So there's a report going to County Council on Thursday in regards to that, so perhaps the county may follow up, but that could be an opportunity. We're not sure yet. Minister Thompson announced an increase to the RED, the Rural Economic Development Fund, as the letter we just received in our correspondence. And Premier Ford also addressed the conference, as did all of the other leaders, kind of a pre-election talk on what they're all about. So it was a great conference. Again, as usual, I certainly enjoyed it. It was a good experience and met a lot of new connections, and it was excellent. Thank you. I think that's all I have. I should have mentioned this during, and again, we received the youth council minutes. I noticed in their minutes, they've asked to hold up on their, comments about the volleyball court. So they're actually doing a survey to the community to see if we do need an outdoor volleyball court. I've heard some rumblings out there that why do we need a volleyball court down there? So that's good that they're doing that. So kudos on that group to get some input from the community on outdoor volleyball courts. So we'll wait and see what happens there. Here's my reports. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any committees? If not, we need a motion to accept the verbal reports from Councillor Smith. Moved by Hugh, second by Bob. All in favor? Carried. Okay, now we're going to bylaws. We have first and second reading. We have two bylaws. We have bylaw 106-2025, the Mico's Municipal Drain 2024 final assessment. And the second one we have is 107-2025, and that's the Rostock Municipal Drain 2024 final assessment. So we need a mover for first and second readings of those bylaws. Moved by Hugh, second by Andrew. All in favor? Carried. And then we have third and final reading, and we have four bylaws for that. The first one being the 106-2025, the Mico's Municipal Drain 2024 final assessment. Excuse me, the second one being 107-2025, the Rostock Municipal Drain 2024 Final Assessment. The third one being the provisional bylaw 117-2024 to provide for drainage work known on the Ginsrick Municipal Drain 2024. And the fourth one, provisional bylaw 118-2024 to provide for drainage work known as a McCloy Municipal Drain. Excuse me, I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Hughes, second by Amanda. All in favor? Carried. I'm losing my voice. Wow, thank you. Okay, do we have any notice of motions? Any other, excuse me, any other business? We do have one item. We have, for the Perth East Twinning Committee, Councillor Brodaken as wishes to, I guess, resign from the committee because of it conflicts with where she works and when the meetings are going to be. And as Jerry just said, wow, the meeting is tomorrow morning at 11 a.m., so anybody that works it finds it tough. So with Amanda's resignation, I would put my name forward. I don't know if there's anyone else who wishes to put their name forward to sit on this committee or not. See no one. Okay, do we need a motion to that effect?
And then we'll have to bring it back to the bylaw.
Okay. So we have a motion that the Council of the Township of Perth East receive the letter of resignation of Councillor Brodaken for the Perth East Twinning Interest Committee, and that Council appoint Rhonda Eggets to the Perth East Twinning Committee to satisfy the composition/membership requirements outlined in the PETIC terms of reference. Moved by Jerry, second by Amanda. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Do we have any announcements? We don't have a need for a closed session, so we're down to the confirmatory bylaw. And it reads that bylaw 09-2025 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of Council of the Township of Perth East at its regular meeting held on February 4, 2025, be read a first, second, and third time. Moved by Hughes, second by Amanda. All in favor? Carried. And the last motion of the night is that we adjourn our meeting at 7:52 p.m. Moved by Amanda, second by Bob. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, everyone. Hope you enjoy the rest of your night. Bye.